Hi, everyone. Welcome to Children in the Fields Campaign's Live Thursday. My name is Kendra Mosley, and today we'll be discussing AFOP members' services to the farm worker community. Since COVID-19 struck, our members have been following CDC guidelines and transitioning to working from home. But the communities we serve, the farm workers, have been deemed essential. So they're in the fields, and many of them are in more need than ever. Fortunately, the AFOP family has risen to the challenge, providing emergency and training services remotely, virtually, and in person with masks from 6 feet apart. We're really proud of everything the AFOP network is doing. So that's why we've invited 3 special guests, few more than usual. We're happy to have them here. One is Daniel Hoffman-Zinnel, Chief Executive Officer of Proteus, Inc., which serves Iowa, Nebraska, and Indiana. Monica Almodovar, the Workforce Development Specialist for Telamon, North Carolina at the Dunn office. And Kathleen Nelson, who's the Director of Workforce Development at AFOP. Antoine Jackson is also on the phone. He is Telemon's North Carolina Deputy Director of Workforce and Career Services. So welcome to Daniel, Katie, Antoine, and Monica.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, good afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Hi, Kendra.
A few things to note before we get started. Let me just put this up on the screen. As you all probably know, if you've been listening to our previous broadcasts, our contest is going on right now for Children in the Fields. If you're a child of farm workers, or if you know a child of farm workers who's between the age of 10 and 18 years old, you are eligible to apply to our contest. There are multiple categories for essay and art. So please check out the guidelines and the application. You must use the 2020 application. It's on the website on the screen, afop.org/CIF. Also, if you want to see our previous live streams, it's at the same link on the 8th tab. So check those out. And we want to thank everyone who's been supporting this Live Thursday project. It's been a great way to keep everyone connected and plugged in to what's happening with farm workers during this crisis. So we hope everyone can join us every Thursday here at 12:30. And if you're interested in getting announcements and reminders, just send your email to our inbox or to Facebook. Just send us a direct message. Also, I want to mention just a shout out to all the teachers. I know happy National Teachers Day was on Tuesday, I think. So thank you to all of our teachers. A lot of migrant teachers have been very influential in many of our followers' lives. So we want to thank you. And also, happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers out there. It's coming up. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Katie first. She is our Director of Workforce Development. And I usually give a brief overview of what AFOP is and what our members do, but I'm more than happy to hand that task over to Katie today. She works closely with colleagues at the U.S. Department of Labor to provide technical assistance and other support to our members. So, Katie, welcome.
I'll do my best to follow in your footsteps in this platform. I'm really excited to be here and to talk about what is AFOP and what is NFJP.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So many viewers already know about AFOP's health and safety programs and our anti-child labor campaign, but we're also a member association of organizations across the country who all have the same grant from the United States Department of Labor to provide career services to low-income migrant and seasonal farm workers and their families across the United States, plus Puerto Rico. And eligible farm workers and their family members can receive a whole host of services through our members and their grants related to job training, and some examples are training for higher skilled jobs in agriculture, job training for jobs in other industries, career counseling and job placement assistance, tuition assistance, dropout prevention and support for success for young people in school, wraparound services to help transition into training or into full-time employment. In addition to those career services, our members and other National Farm Worker Housing grantees can provide emergency, temporary, and permanent housing services, emergency services for farm workers who want to continue to work in agriculture but who are in need of urgent assistance at the time, and our members are working really hard to improve the lives of migrant and seasonal farm workers and their families through emergency services, career services, other supportive services, and the National Farm Worker Jobs Program grants through the Department of Labor, a big part of that.
Great. Do you want to speak just real briefly about how you think COVID-19 has been affecting the farm worker community and all of that?
Yeah. So alongside medical professionals and government agencies, the agricultural industry and all of the workers associated with it are considered essential workers. So farm workers and food processors are really critical right now to our country's ability to be able to, work through this pandemic. And one of the ways that COVID-19 has been affecting the farm worker community is that the nature of the work in agriculture and in food processing is it's really challenging for agricultural employers and food processors to adopt the best practices to keep workers safe. And I think we've been seeing that a lot of examples in the news of operations that have been slow to adopt best practices and or had challenges adopting best practices. I mean, the reality of sort of the lives of our migrant workers is that they live together in large communities, and sort of the social distancing that a lot of people can do for their families to stay separate from other families just isn't possible in migrant camps or in sort of traditional migrant worker housing. You often have multiple families and workers sharing either community space or even the same housing. And so it's really difficult for a lot of farm worker families to keep isolated the way that is recommended, and still be able to do the work that they need to do in order to feed their families with their wages, and also feed the rest of us with the food that they harvest. So that is, I think, one our colleagues that are doing the direct work can talk even more about that, but it's a real challenge for the farm worker community, just like everyone else.
So I know our guests, Daniel and Monica, will be speaking to this as well, but what is AFOP overall doing to help the farm worker community at this time?
Well, one of the things that we're seeing that all of our member organizations are dealing with is, our member organizations have participants that they've been serving that are in school, trying to make career changes and learn new skills. And as schools have closed, there have been a lot of challenges for our members that they're trying to help I'm sorry, everyone, I'm so nervous. Let me take a drink and start that question again. Okay. So our member organizations all have a lot of participants that are currently involved in school and trying to make the transition from farm work into a new career. And because they're in rural areas, the digital divide is a really serious challenge for everyone in rural America, and especially low-income individuals and especially low-income farm workers. So our member organizations are working really hard to make sure that their farm worker participants who are in education have the connectivity that they need, whether it's through hotspots or telephone access or other devices, enable them to continue their education and to support their kids who are also trying to do distance learning. So that's a big challenge that our member organizations are facing to try and help their participants. And also, food insecurity is a very serious problem for farm workers in general, and especially now. It's the great irony, right? That our the people that are picking our food for everyone across the country, across the world, sometimes don't have enough to eat themselves. And so we're seeing a lot of our member organizations rising to the challenge, putting together food boxes, expanding their the food closets that they have for their community, working with other community food resources to make sure that the farm workers in their community and their farm worker participants in their programs are getting enough to eat. So those are the big two: connectivity and food insecurity that have become the focus of a lot of the service that our member organizations are trying to provide to support the community.
Thank you, Katie. I want to mention that we have some messages coming in from our followers already. And if you haven't already, please type into the chat who you are and where you're from. We're excited to have so many from Telamon and Proteus joining us today, coincidentally, I'm sure. And I think we will have some time towards the end for question and answer. So if you have any questions for any of our participants today, please type that into the chat. Katie, is there any way that people can support AFOP at this time?
Yeah, so AFOP is a nonprofit organization. We're supported by our member dues and foundation support and grant support and donor support. If you visit our website, you can learn about lots of different ways. And really, I want to encourage everyone to spread the word about the Children in the Field contest, and also just continue to spread the word about what it is you see in the farm worker community, what those needs are, and just shout them out, because the more that we draw attention to the needs of farm workers, the more all of our organizations are going to be able to get the resources that they need to continue their work. So visit afop.org and support the contest and support farm workers.
Absolutely. All right, great. Thank you, Katie. We will move on to our next guest, Daniel Hoffman-Zinnel. Daniel has served as the CEO of Proteus, Inc. since August 2019. But he's worked with the organization for over 7 years. He has over 10 years of nonprofit administration and leadership experience working with migrant and seasonal farm workers, the LGBTQ community, Latinx community, and individuals with disabilities. Daniel serves as the tri-chair of the Social Capital within Capital Crossroads and is on a variety of community and state boards and advisory councils. He has a doctorate of education and leadership from Creighton University. So welcome, Daniel.
Thank you.
Daniel, first of all, who and what is Proteus, and what's your relationship with AFOP?
Sure. Proteus Inc. is a multi-state nonprofit in Iowa, Nebraska, and Indiana, and we were created in 1979 by Proteus of California, which is also another member of AFOP. And then in 1983, we broke off and became our own separate entity. But Proteus, the name, is actually, it derives from Proteus, the Greek god, who, if you prayed to him, he would transform into whatever the person was in need of. And so that's really what we try to exemplify within our organization at Proteus for meeting the changing needs of farm workers across our 3 states. We operate the National Farm Worker Jobs Program in all of the 3 states, Iowa, Nebraska, Indiana, provide the health and safety trainings across the 3 states. And then in Iowa, we also offer additional services that is a little bit unique to, I think, many of the AFOP members. We have the agricultural health program that we've operated since 1991, and our federally qualified health center, providing migrant and seasonal farm workers access to healthcare. We have 3 locations where patients can access care, but actually most of our clinics are mobile. We go to where farm workers are at and set up mobile clinics on site where they're doing the farm work, or partnering with local churches or community centers to provide space for us and give access to farm workers. And the model we use is through nurse practitioners. We have a full-time clinical director. So a shout out to all the nurses this week, because it's also National Nurses Week.
Oh,
yeah. And then we have around 11 part-time to PRN other nurse practitioners throughout the state. And we go to them, provide basic primary care, but also connect them to additional resources that they might need. We have a pharmacy, so we can bring prescription drugs with us. So really overall, just increasing access to farm workers, overall healthcare. And then we also, in one of our offices in Des Moines, we have a food pantry, and that's definitely been something that we've seen increase, kind of connecting to what Katie said related to food insecurity with what we're seeing on the ground with farm workers. We've been a member of AFOP for over 40 years and definitely value the resources, expertise, and services they provide to us and all of our staff.
We appreciate you as well. And before we talked this week, I wasn't aware of the medical connection, so I'm really happy that you all have that service for farm workers. What services, so you already mentioned some of the services that you provide to the community. Do you have multilingual services? And if so, what languages and dialects do you have?
Yes, English and Spanish is the two languages that we have the most staff available to provide services in. So English and Spanish.
Okay. And how has COVID-19 been affecting the farm worker community in Iowa, Nebraska, and Indiana?
It's been pretty challenging, I would say. Talking about meat processing, meat packing, individual workers that work in meat packing and meat processing, it's definitely impacting them, especially in the Midwest, where the bulk of those locations are happening. And even in Iowa, this last week, we heard that one of our meat processing plants, over half of their employees tested positive for COVID-19. And many of our farm workers have partners or family members that work in meat processing plants. And so there definitely is an increased exposure, unfortunately, that farm workers are experiencing. I think one unique thing that is interesting anecdotally that we're hearing from our staff and from partners that work with not only farm workers, but the Latinx community is that they're not reaching out for help. They think others might need help more than they do. And so we've been we try to really be proactive, especially on our health side and NFJP side, to proactively connect with the farm workers on a regular basis as much as we can to offer the services that we have available. And then especially on our health side, connecting with the patients who are diabetic or experience hypertension, some of those chronic conditions that would put them at even greater risk if they were to be exposed to COVID-19. And thankfully, we've been starting to do that because we reached out to a couple of our diabetic patients, and they weren't even thinking about reaching out to us to talk about the symptoms they were experiencing. And we went out and tested them based on what they told us, and they both tested positive for COVID-19. So I think I can't stress enough the importance of reaching out to farm workers, especially now, because they're very proud and they don't want a handout. They want to do their job and provide for their families. And so as much as we can reach out, I can't stress that enough. We've heard on the ground that some of our H2A workers will be arriving earlier than maybe we had anticipated because the employers want to allow for at least a 14-day quarantine before they were ready to start. Whereas some of our other growers were hearing that they might delay some of the start times. Usually they start coming in early to mid-May, and many of them are potentially not going to arrive until later May or early June, so that the employers can be a bit more prepared, and hopefully we have a bit more information. And then another thing that we've been really trying to proactively do based on what we've seen happen in the meat processing and packing plants is to reach out to the agriculture employers and crew leaders to offer best practices and recommendations to encourage them as much as they can to implement, because so much of this can be prevented if they were to implement some of these simple measures like offering paid sick leave, offering additional hand sanitizing stations, certain things like that. And many of them are very receptive or have started implementing them, which is great. And then the final thing that we've heard from farm workers directly is just face masks. They need face masks. And so that's what really sparked us to launch a campaign a couple weeks ago, hashtag face masks for farm workers. If you haven't seen that, check that out. But we're collecting face masks to disperse to farm workers across our 3 states. And so far, over the last 2 weeks, I think we're approaching almost 1,500 face masks that have been donated to us. So that's been a great campaign to bring light to the experiences of farm workers, while also giving people who I think are just looking for something to do and to be a part of something bigger than themselves. It's really given them the opportunity to do just that.
Did I spell that hashtag right, or is the 4 actually
I
spelled?
think so. No, you got that right. You got that right.
Okay, awesome. So you mentioned testing. Do you have an approximate percentage of how many of the people you've tested have been positive for COVID-19?
Yes, we've only done a small number, around 9 or 10 tests. We were very limited on the number of tests we had available. Thankfully, we're getting more, so that's great. Hopefully, we have even more as more farm workers arrive, so that we can get out and test them more robustly. And thankfully, we also did receive some additional funding through HRSA to expand and gear up for COVID-19 testing throughout the next year. So far we've only tested 9 or 10, but 3 of those have already come back as positive. And so there's definitely been a higher percentage of the patients we've tested so far, I think, compared to the general population who have tested positive for COVID-19.
Do you ask them their symptoms before testing, or does anyone that asks you for testing get it?
Yeah, there's still, based on public health kind of encouragement of how to screen for who is deemed necessary for tests, there are certain protocols that we are following. So there might be some individuals who we may not test right away, whereas others we might. But encourage farm workers, if you are in Iowa, to give us a call, and our healthcare providers can provide services to you. One other thing that I might add is the ability for us to use telehealth, which is new to us. And I think many healthcare providers across the country. Thankfully, our malpractice insurance through the federal government loosened with this pandemic to allow us to offer telehealth services. And so many other healthcare providers are doing the same. And so we launched it very quickly, and that's how we're providing healthcare to most of our patients, is through telehealth, which limits our exposure and limits their exposure while allows them to increase access. And then if they still need additional prescriptions or specific things, we will go on site to them or drive to them. And I think one great thing about our operations, we were already mobile before this, and that definitely has set us up for being successful in reaching our farm workers. And so when we have done tests, we've gone directly to them and done testing outside of their home or outside of their place of employment.
Great. So since you have so many wonderful services for farm workers, how can they reach you if they're in your service area? I know there's a website. We had that up for a little while. Yeah. Is there a phone number to call?
Yeah, 1-800-372-6031. That's our main office, who can get farm workers connected to all of our locations across Iowa, Nebraska, and Indiana.
Is that right? 1-800-372?
You got it. Yep.
Great. I hope it doesn't, well, I mean, it's probably good if it rings off the hook, but
yeah,
it's my fault. Okay, so great. Thank you, Daniel. That is very helpful information. And we're very thankful that you're providing those services to farm workers. We'll move on to Monica so that we have enough time at the end for questions if we receive any. Also, I'm happy if this turns into a conversation amongst all of us, because that was happening this week on our practice sessions, and it was, I felt, I don't get enough of conversation these days, other than with a 5 and a 6-year-old. So anyway, Monica, I'm going to ask you a few questions, but first I'm going to say a little bit about you. Monica has been with Telamon Corporation since November 2017. She's a workforce development specialist for the National Farm Worker Jobs Program at the Dunn office in North Carolina. The Dunn office serves the counties of Harnett, Wake, Johnston, Lee, and Chatham. She and the team link farm worker youth and adults to educational opportunities based on their individual needs, which lead to better jobs, better lives, and better communities. So Monica, welcome.
Thank you.
So first off, just like I did with Daniel, can you tell us a little bit about Telamon and your relationship with AFOP?
Yes, so Telamon Corporation, we are a nonprofit organization, and we started up in North Carolina in 1965, and then we expanded to 11 states. Alabama, Delaware, Georgia, Indiana, Maryland, Michigan, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. And our mission is basically empowering individuals and improving communities. And by doing that, we just offer educational services that can assist farm workers and their dependents.
Great. So you mentioned where you're located. What do you have services that are in multi languages, and if so, which ones?
Yes. So most field staff in Telamon, we're bilingual to the language that the farm workers of that area speak. In the Mid-Atlantic region, that language is Haitian or Creole. And then in other states, that language is Spanish. We also have access to translation services in the event that that's needed. So language barriers should never hinder anyone from applying for services.
That's great. So how has COVID-19 been affecting the farm worker community in the states where Telamon operates, specifically North Carolina?
In specific to North Carolina, we received a lot of concerns about the lack of childcare for farm worker families, as well as other concerns with COVID-19. Having to become used to an environment where it is critical to practice even more stringent health safety measures, while at the same time try to earn a living to care for your family, it can be very challenging. When you think of some of the typical agriculture working conditions, such as working side by side, being in less than arm's reach of each other, having to travel together, shoulder to shoulder in buses and vans, it becomes concerning when you are being told to stay 6 feet away from each other and to practice social distancing. Not to mention the cases where there just isn't enough space in a migrant camp to heed the social distancing, the warnings.
Yeah, it is concerning. So what initiatives is Telamon undertaking to help prevent the coronavirus among the farm worker community and your staff?
So information and education are key. And so we have staff that's dedicated to the mission of serving farm workers as safely as we possibly can. Just last week, our office coordinated a food delivery, a pickup and drop off, where we reached out to one of our local churches in the area. We're able to pick up the food and then take it to the campsite where we had 12 HOA workers who had just came and didn't have any food to eat. And by doing that, we were able to adhere to the CDC guidelines, and we had the proper PPE equipment, and we're able to do that as well.
That's great. What initiatives is your organization undertaking? I'm sorry. I
also wanted, I know Katie had mentioned the lack of communication, especially for students. And me being a youth case manager, most of my participants are students. And so we have been able to basically coordinate community partners who have laptops available for students in order to provide them to our participants so that they can continue with their online classes.
Wonderful.
That's great. Where can farm workers reach you other than the website that I've already put up on the screen?
So definitely our website, telamon.org. And if they go to the website, they can go to the area where it says where we work, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll be able to choose the state and the program of interest. There we have 3 lines of services that Telamon operates in. So there's housing and financial empowerment, there's early childhood and family support, and then I work in the workforce and career services, which is the overall for the National Farm Worker Job Program.
Great. And the last question, I'm not sure if I asked Daniel this, but you can answer it after Monica. How can the general public help Telamon?
So yes, definitely. On our website, again, telamon.org, you will see on the menu an option to join us. There you will be able to donate, partner, volunteer, or for qualified individuals, join our Telamon family. Donations could be long sleeve shirts, clothing items, kit bags with personal hygiene items for migrant workers, toys and books for our Head Start centers, and of course, tax-deductible donations will be accepted.
Dana, did I ask you that question? I don't know if I if I forgot.
I don't think so, but I can answer if you would like.
Yes, please.
Similar to Telamon, proteusinc.net/donate. Donations are a way for us to expand program and services to farm workers. But I think right now, one thing that I would encourage the general public to do, not just for Proteus, but in general for farm workers, is to use your privilege and power for good. And I think really take time right now to pause and kind of back to what Katie was talking about, really be grateful for farm workers. Hopefully this brings out that gratefulness even more with us thinking about the food that we eat each and every day and how we get it. But hopefully even after the pandemic, people recognize the importance farm workers play in all of our lives each and every day, not only by the food that we are eating each and every day, but also just the general economy, especially in, I know, our Midwestern states that we cover. Without agriculture, our economy would not be the same. And so I can't stress enough the importance of being grateful for farm workers and really lifting up their stories and sharing their stories. I think oftentimes our farm workers live in the shadows, especially our migrants who come to our 3 states, who work 7 days a week, sunrise to sunset. And many times people in the communities where migrant farm workers are living don't even know migrant farm workers live there. And so I think bringing farm workers out of the shadows and sharing their stories as much as possible will help, I think, hopefully improve the lives of farm workers in the future.
Yeah, we're hoping that this whole thing, it's horrible, everything that's happening. With the farmers being in the news so much lately, it's made people more aware of the fact that they don't have the basic labor protections, the labor rights that we all have. I think May Day was just almost a week ago, and that celebrates the weekend, the 40-hour work week, but farm workers don't even get overtime. And it's just really frustrating. And then there's also the disparity for the kids. And that's why we have our Children in the Fields campaign, because it's crazy that kids as young as 10 are working in tobacco and getting green tobacco sickness, and that's legal,
I think the pandemic has definitely highlighted the inequities and disparities that so many of our communities that experience marginalization are experiencing. And hopefully we can all work together to not go back to normal, but create a world where everyone can thrive together. But I do want to highlight another thing that I don't even know if I talked to you, Kendra, about earlier this week, but farm workers and other immigrants many times are not eligible for governmental assistance or unemployment. And so one thing that we've done in partnership with Alexito and American Friends Services Committee is start an immigrant support fund specifically to help immigrant families who are not eligible for governmental assistance. And thankfully we received a good chunk of funding in Central Iowa, at least, to start those services, and have done a few other grants in order to do just that. But I can't stress enough the importance of the general public knowing that not everyone is eligible for unemployment or can get food stamps or is getting the stimulus check. Even documented individuals aren't getting the stimulus check, we just found out recently, right? So I think just raising that awareness is really important too. I
agree. Monica, I wanted to bring your experience with the farm worker youth to the fore, since that's what we're all about here. Can you tell us a little bit about your work with the teenagers and the kids?
Yeah, definitely. For me, I enroll youth between the ages of 16 to 24. That's our youth population. And what we do is normally they are the dependents of farm workers. Although some of them have actually done the farm work themselves, the majority are dependents of farm workers, i.e., their parents or grandparents have worked in the farm. And so what we do is we have personable relationships with them. We listen to their needs, listen to their wants too. And we found that the majority of them have two main goals: education and employment. They all want to go to school, they want to become self-sufficient, and in order to do that, sometimes they just need a push in the right direction. So what we do is we conduct assessments with them, see what their interests are, see where they're at an educational level as well, and then help them enroll in local community colleges, whether it's to do a short-term training or to your degree, and then being able to set them out into the workforce with work experience contracts or on-the-job training and contracts or apprenticeships. So just basically helping them and assisting them in every need that they need.
That's great. I am a strong believer in farm worker children. And with this contest, the entries that we get are astounding every year. And I really want to encourage everyone who's listening to please have anyone who's eligible help them send in the entries, because this year they might not have the assistance of their migrant ed teacher because they're all home. And it might be a little bit harder for them to access the guidelines because of the internet connection. So anything that you all can do to help with that is much, much appreciated. There are scholarships available. And what this does is it elevates the voices of the children, and it helps to continue the campaign to get them equal rights in the fields, equal protections. So yeah, Monica, I think we talked a little bit about the kids who are in the tobacco fields in North Carolina. Do you have a relationship with any of them?
I do. Not to drop names, but I actually had 2 participants. And when I first started in November 2017, he had worked on tobacco, and the other gentleman actually won the AFOP contest last year, I believe.
Oh, I'm trying to remember.
I'm sorry?
Can you say his first name?
Christian.
I'll have to post his picture later on. Was it picture or essay?
Say that again?
Was it his picture or essay? His drawing or essay?
It was an essay.
Okay.
So, and I was able to work, one-on-one with them, and just starting out with Telamon. Prior to coming to Telamon, I was a WIOA case manager for a short time. So I understood that program. And when I came to NFJP, your heart just becomes directly involved, and so takes on a different meaning. And so that the other gentleman that didn't win the contest, but now he's working full time. He's got his 2-year degree in engineering, so it's great.
Good.
And just being able to see their growth, from where they were at till now in the process of just 2.5 years.
Yeah, it's amazing. I want to remind the audience, please submit your questions. I did get one about face masks. Can they be homemade?
Yes, they can. And we've been receiving a lot of them that have been homemade. So on our Facebook page, we pinned on top how you can make them. So check our Facebook out. Give us a like if you're there.
Hey, what's the tag for your Facebook?
I believe it's Proteus, so facebook.org/Proteus Iowa, I believe. I can confirm that with you in a second too. You may have to come back to me. My internet's
I haven't given you any more questions. Do you have any questions for Daniel or Monica?
No, I mean, I would love to hear some of how it's going with your organization and our colleagues that we see every year. And AFOP has a big national conference for all of our members to come together. And so I would love to hear how your staff are doing. Like, are you working? Are they working from home? Like, what are your strategies to keep your staff going right now?
All right, I found it's facebook.com/Proteus Inc. Iowa. But I can take a first response to that. So early on, I feel like when this all came about, I was sick actually the week of March 11th, and potentially had COVID-19. Who knows? I was tested for influenza A and B, and it came back negative. But by that Friday, things became a little bit more serious, because I remember I feel like it was Friday the 13th, but maybe I was wrong. And so I reached out to our leadership team over the weekend to have them be thinking about how we could transition to adapting our services and working from home for most of our staff. And so on March 16th, that Monday, we actually implemented a policy to be effective on March 17th, which is how we're living today. So most of our staff are working from home, except for our essential staff who are direct care workers. So our healthcare team obviously has to have some contact with our patients. And then our frontline staff who run the food pantry are there in person as well. And then our accounting has to cut checks and do all those things. So they go in at least once a week to make sure that our operations are fully in efficient as possible. But one thing personally as a leader, I've tried to really live out my personal values. And one of my personal values is joy. And so I feel like that's one that I've tried to live out loud even more on steroids, because I think in times like this, we need as much positivity as possible while still being pragmatic and realistic. But I think either we laugh or we're going to crumble and cry. And so I've tried to implement certain things and activities when we have weekly staff meetings, to institute some silliness and fun and joy to keep people smiling. And that's kind of had a ripple effect. I know one of our case managers now asks all of our clients when she talks to them, what's one thing that's made you smile today? And I think that alone just gives all of us the pause to be human again and have that connection. But it's definitely altered how we operate. And so as things start to semi-open up, we haven't made any significant decisions yet, but there will probably be some sort of tiered approach as we start having more face-to-face contact with our clients and patients. But our number one priority is keeping everyone safe. And so I think that'll be decisions that will be made as we get more information.
Monica, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Anyone hear Monica? She might be having some issues with the connection. Let me just put up.
This is Antoine.
Hey, Antoine.
Yeah, I saw with Monica had some technical issues there. For Telamon, the way we've been, I couldn't be more proud of my organization with the way we've been handling the whole pandemic. Just prior to the governor even making a decision, leadership, had stayed in contact with the directors, who then stayed in contact with the field staff. We were already ahead of the process and taking steps to ensure the safety of not only our staff, but the clients that we serve, where we could work, from home, staff were working from home. If we had to go into the office prior to the quarantine orders being handed down, it was on a limited basis, and we were doing social distancing before the orders even came down. So when the orders came down, it was at that point business as the new normal for us. And, we have daily contact with the staff, regular meetings. We worked on different technologies like GoToMeeting and FaceTime and, different ways to reach out to people without being there. So the epitome of alone together is what we've been doing since the end of April, rolling into the quarantine orders. And I couldn't be, again, more proud of how the staff reacted, got on board, and continue to serve farm workers.
That makes my heart happy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Antoine.
Can you guys hear me now?
I can say, to answer my own question too, that a lot of our members have been doing this. I mean, everyone's got to do the same. And many of our member organizations, because they're community service organizations, are considered essential in their states. So they're able to continue to go into the office to practice those, as long as they practice and set up, proper social distancing to protect their staff. So, I mean, it's been really amazing, the dedication that that our member organizations have to the community and to their staff, to their own internal organizational community too, to make sure, I mean, prioritizing the health and safety of their staff so that they can support the health and safety of the farm worker community has been amazing to watch. So congratulations to Telamon and to Proteus and to all of our member organizations for all the hard work that they've been doing to make sure that their staff are safe.
Yes. Amen. I'm going to hit the refresh button just to see if I can get Monica that way.
Can you guys see me and hear me okay?
Hey, there you are.
Hi, can you hear
Yay.
me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, awesome.
Did we lose Kendra too?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm glad you're back.
It just makes you realize how hard our teachers are working to be able to have online school and online class. I mean, just for Kendra to wrangle the the four of us with Antoine's phone is amazing. I mean, I hear my 9-year-old's classes going on in the background, and I'm just like, congratulations to all the teachers.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to all of the parents. I can't imagine parenting in the middle of this. So shout out to all of the parents who are making this work. And I think that's another thing we've tried to implement internally within Proteus, recognizing that our staff are going to have different needs, and we try to be as flexible and adaptable as possible, and allowing them to kind of fluctuate their schedule based on their current situation. So I think recognizing the parents is really important in light of all of this.
Is it National Parents?
It's like from the chat that Monica's talking. Are we on?
I can
I don't know.
guys.
Monica? Okay.
I think we are.
I don't
I think
either.
we
Do we need to leave and come back then?
I don't know.
No,
I
no.
can hear everyone and I can see everyone.
I think you're fine.
Looks like Antoine. We can't hear Antoine. Is he still there?
That was from the other day.
I think he's on the phone.
I'm
Yep.
still here.
He's still here. I got one question about the migrant education program. Is there any plan for that to go remote? Anyone know about migrant education? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything.
Katie, wait 1 second. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Kendra.
Yes.
Katie, can you hear me? Uh-oh. Daniel, can you hear me?
Oh, we are. Okay.
Daniel, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh. Okay, I may be interrupting Kendra or Monica, but Daniel and I can only see and hear each other. So I think we'll pop off and come back.
Okay.
Okay. I'll hopefully see you in a second.
Well,
Technology, you gotta love it.
I know. It's such a joy. Okay, here's Katie. Hopefully. 2, 1. And Daniel. 3, 2,
I know I came out and tried to come back in like twice. So
Katie, try again. Daniel, can you hear me? Yeah. All right, I cannot see.
If people are playing the Zoom bingo, here's your chance to mark something up, I'm sure.
Katie, try again. Go off and get on.
it was working so good too.
I know. I don't know what happened. Does either of you, while we're waiting, Monica, do you have any relationship with the migrant ed program? Do you know anything about their plans to function? I mean, or have Zoom or anything?
I don't know anything at the moment. We do have a partnership with them, and I know that this would be around the time where they would start their enrolling, actually last month. However, we haven't heard anything as of yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's really hard. Migrant ed is like the worst kind of thing to do remotely. Darn it. I have a question for Katie, but now she's not. Here she is. I don't see her. Oh, but she's a ghost. Yay! Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Mute and unmute. Hey, I can hear. Can you hear me now? I can't hear you. We have a comment from someone on. Oh, there you are. Someone on Facebook said that East Coast Migrant Head Start Project has been doing remote learning in our Florida centers and is in the planning process to provide the same for our upstream programs. Thank you. Good job. That's from Annette Epoch Galante from Florida. Thank you, Annette. Well, Katie, you still can't. Nope. Can you hit the mute and unmute button to try to?
How about now?
Yay!
Yay!
All right, so troubleshooting, it's so wonderful. So that's the end of my questions. That's the end of the audience's questions. Now that we're all back on, if you all have questions for each other, though, we have a few minutes left.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity and for everything that AFOP has been doing. Even prior to the pandemic, but now with the live streams and the information flow, I just want to say thanks for all of that. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thanks, Antoine. Well, if that's all, we can go ahead and end the live stream early so you all have some more time to do the wonderful work that you're doing. I want to mention that we are here every week. Not the same beautiful faces, different beautiful faces next week. So please plan to come back next week at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. We're having part 2, AFOP members serving the farm worker community. So far we have OIC of Washington definitely joining. So look forward to that. And then the following week, we're going to be hosting the camp program from Adams State University. The director and a couple of her camp students are going to be on, and we can hear their experience. They're in Southern Colorado, and it's a place that's very near to my heart. I used to live there, actually. And it's a very hard scrabble place. It'll be very interesting to hear their experience through this pandemic. And I think that's it. So I just want to thank you again. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Kendra, for the invite. Thank you.
And good luck. Please stay safe. Please stay well. And we'll talk later.
See y'all.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Oh, bye, Antoine.
Bye, Antoine.